Worldwide, 2.5 million patients suffer with MS, and in the UK, 131,750 patients suffer from the condition. It can affect all systems. You know, people can have visual disturbances, bladder difficulties, bowel problems, sexual dysfunction, spasms, and have trouble walking. You have a long-term neurodegenerative disease that is incurable.
What if this is not the whole story? Could there be a way to really turn around the lives of people with MS and give them hope for a longer and better quality of life? Hi, my name's Kim, and I was diagnosed with MS 10 years ago. This is my story. Kim is my older sister. We are 3 years apart.
She was the first of 4 children in our family.
I was about 7 years younger than Kim. So she was always the oldest sister, the responsible oldest sister.
We were very close and we did everything together.
She was very, very involved in all the sports that South African schools offer: netball, swimming, tennis, athletics.
Kim has always been a very fun-loving, very energetic person who has had a very large capacity for being involved in lots of different things.
She was very outgoing. She was a very outgoing, positive, kind person and teenager.
She's always been a person who strived for having peace in her life and having joy in her life. And yeah, family has always been very important to her. We've always been very important to her. Friends have always been important to her. My husband and I moved to London in 2008. And during that time, I started experiencing some strange symptoms of numbness. And it became more obvious that there was a problem. And so after about 2 years of experiencing these symptoms, I went and had an MRI done, and they found lesions on my spinal cord and brain. And I was very easily diagnosed with MS. MS is an autoimmune condition in which certain cells of the immune system start to malfunction and attack healthy nerves of the brain and the spinal cord.
It mistakes the covering of the nerve, which we call myelin, for some kind of foreign body. And then it starts to attack the myelin, and it causes inflammation that kind of chews away at the myelin. The messages from the brain to the rest of the body, it gets a bit distorted and it doesn't work properly. That's why people get these symptoms.
My main symptoms were numbness. I started feeling some tingling in my legs and my arms, and after that I started feeling like some numbness, and they were really strong. Like I got worried when I felt that somebody could cut my arms and I wouldn't feel because they were so. It was so intense.
In 2012, I had a really big relapse and lost sort of sensation down my right-hand side. So I had numbness and tingling, which progressed through my whole right side of my body.
I had an episode when I couldn't feel anything. I was outside in the sun and I couldn't feel the breeze of the air or the temperatures.
I had vision problems that actually got better when I moved to Spain, but they never fully disappeared.
My main symptoms were sensory. So I had numbness in most of my limbs, and I've had severe itching in various parts of my body. I've also had the fatigue and the brain fog.
I was constantly very fatigued and tired.
I had some slurred speech and some balance issues because of the numbness, which meant I had some difficulty walking at that time as well.
Unfortunately, people are told that there isn't much to be done, or that medication is the only option. There isn't a lot of hope or positivity that is given at diagnosis.
My husband was diagnosed with MS in 2002. They sat us down and they said, you probably have MS. and we don't really have the diagnostic tools to give you a definitive answer, what we tend to say to patients is just go away. And if you have another relapse or another episode, then we'll give you a positive diagnosis of MS.
They told me to Google it. The next one actually told me that I will be disabled in 7 years. It has been more than 5 now, and I'm still fine. And the next one that followed actually said that the only way how to treat it are drugs.
I asked the neurologist that I had if I needed to change anything in my diet or anything else, and they told me no, not necessary, and they just gave me medicine.
As a medical professional, everything we suggest has to be evidence-based. And there are things people can do to try and manage the disease. It is not all doom and gloom, and we can manage a disease by managing relapses. We can manage it by treating symptoms as they arise, and of course we have the disease-modifying treatments, and that just helps with long-term disease management.
Kim had just come for a visit to South Africa.
They came out to show their newborn baby. She was 8 months old. And, we're very excited to have Kim with us. And then one afternoon, she gathered the family and she said, I want to share something with you all.
And that about 3 months before that time, she had been diagnosed with MS.
I think I was devastated. I was really shocked.
She played it down a little bit when she told us the first time. I don't think she wanted to make it sound like this is a death sentence.
I was very aware that she was sharing it in a way that she was really in control of it, that she'd waited for this moment in time where she'd already processed a lot of it in her own mind.
It was quite a shock because she's such an energetic person and she's so healthy in so many ways.
It was really the diagnosis that you would never wish on your worst enemy.
So we were concerned and we worried about her.
It was a big shock to them. They had no idea what was going on. But the good thing was that I could offer them a little bit of hope, because by that time I had done my own research. I was very lucky because at the time I was diagnosed, there was an explosion of knowledge about how diet and lifestyle could really make a difference to disease progression and how people with MS actually felt on a daily basis. I spoke with Rachel Hunter, a clinical psychologist who also has MS herself, on her research into how diet and lifestyle measures can really make a difference to the course of MS.
The searches that I did showed up 2 really important bodies of work, really, that influenced my decisions around the changes. The first one was Professor Roy Swank's work that he did around dietary intervention in MS. His focus was around reducing the saturated fat intake significantly. And then he followed the people that he applied this to over a really long period of time, across decades, in fact. And the outcomes for those people were so compelling that I just felt I couldn't ignore that research. And, that research, of course, has its limitations. It was done, over 50 years ago. And it was done even before randomized control trials were even, a thing. So unfortunately for Professor Swank, his work is often judged by today's scientific standards. But having looked at the study, directly itself and the information provided, for me, it's enough information to make dietary intervention an absolutely essential way of managing MS.
The study followed the fat intake of the subjects for 34 years. Many patients decided to stop the diet, and so he was able to compare the dieters versus non-dieters. The good dieters' symptoms did not worsen significantly. These subjects had an intake of 16 grams per day on average. 95% survived and were physically active 34 years later. So if we look at the bad dieters to compare outcomes, these subjects who did not stick to the diet had an average of 38 grams of saturated fat per day. 7% were still physically active 34 years later. 45 out of 72 died from MS-related causes. More recently, there was an update to these results, 15 years after the original results were published. Out of the 63 subjects that survived, 47 had stuck to the diet. Swank also interviewed 15 of them, now aged 72 to 84. 13 were physically normal and walked without difficulty, and 2 required assistance with walking. This study helped to show that if people with MS stuck to the low saturated fat diet strictly over their lifetime, it could allow people with MS to live a fully active life to an advanced age. This study was a huge piece of hope for those with MS.
Secondly was the work of Professor George Jelinek and the Overcoming MS programme.
So OMS stands for Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis, which is a 7-step program based on dietary and lifestyle interventions alongside the use of medication where appropriate. And they're extremely good at building community. They are very much based on the work of Professor George Jelinek, who himself has MS, and in about 2011, he published a book which was the result of his own personal research into all the sort of key evidence and valuable evidence that supports diet and lifestyle interventions for people with multiple sclerosis.
It really just made so much sense to me that by the time I'd finished going through that information, it just felt like an absolute no-brainer. You know, why would I not make some changes that had the potential to make such a difference? Even if that was 5% difference to my outcomes or 2% difference, when you're faced with such a life-changing diagnosis, you know, that's huge. I was going to take any percentage that I could get.
I spoke with Sam Josephs, who is a nutritionist specializing in helping people with MS change their diets and eat the right foods to help their body heal.
I tell people to really think about the importance of making each mouthful matter and thinking more about increasing plant-based foods. So thinking more about the nutrient-dense fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes and beans and pulses, and the different varieties of food. And also to think about all the less nutritious foods and trying to sort of redress that balance.
I found out that there were certain foods causing an inflammatory response in my body. And these were foods like dairy, gluten, refined sugar, and meat. So I cut all of those out in one go. And I also found out that there were foods that actually promote an anti-inflammatory effect in the body, which help the body to heal. One of the main things that I started doing was having a really nutritious smoothie in the morning. So some of the things I put in my smoothie are spinach, kale, almonds, berries, a bit of cacao powder, and some apples and bananas. I just put it all into the smoothie. It's this incredibly nutritious and jam-packed anti-inflammatory meal that really gives me a boost at the start of the day.
Another top tip that I do encourage all my patients with MS is to really consider going 100% dairy-free. There are lots of alternatives to dairy foods and dairy products, so it is quite an easy transition to make.
I also really try to ensure that there are 0 processed foods in my diet, because those foods contain a lot of emulsifiers and preservatives that can really affect the healing process and cause inflammation.
Some of the sort of unhealthy fats directly promote inflammation, which is something we really need to avoid, particularly with relapsing remitting MS, which is extremely inflammatory condition. But there are good fats, and we get those from oily fish and from flaxseed oil and from walnuts, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and extra virgin olive oil, and to make sure that those fats are in the diet. They're powerful anti-inflammatory foods, and we want to increase those kinds of foods. And by doing that, there just won't be room on your plate or in your weekly diet for those less healthful foods.
I do recommend, that people look at their diet and lifestyle, because I do think there's a good quote by Anne Whitmore, I think, food can be the most powerful form of medication or the slowest form of poison, and I think in our society, people are poisoning themselves by, what they put in their mouths. And so I do think, if you put the right things in your mouth, you can actually make yourself better from the inside, because, you can't put diesel in a petrol car, can you? And expect it to run.
Another aspect of my changed lifestyle is exercise. I do what I like to term mindful exercise, which is basically a combination of exercise, getting the heart rate up, and mindfulness. And one of my favorite ways to do this is walking in nature. So I go for a walk by myself every morning, and then I walk with my family on the weekends. And it's such a wonderful way just to de-stress and also to get a bit of blood flowing and to get the fitness levels up. This has really made a big difference to how I feel and my energy levels. I also do a bit of interval cycling on my indoor exercise bike. And this is really great to get the blood pumping and the sweat flowing. And it's a great way for me to stay fit.
When Kim told us that she had decided to go the natural route and go for natural treatment rather than pharmacological treatment, we were actually quite happy about her decision.
I think I felt very cautious about it, but also cautiously hopeful, because I could see that she was determined. She is a determined person. She wasn't double-minded. She wasn't going to try a bit and try a bit of that. I felt that she was in control.
I felt comfortable that Kim would give it her best shot and take it from there.
2 weeks after I'd started this process and made all the changes, it literally felt like a blanket had been lifted off my head. The fatigue was gone, my energy levels had drastically increased, and I felt like a completely different person. And since then, I've continued eating this way and living this way, and I've felt the best that I've ever felt. I actually feel even better than before I was diagnosed with MS. About 1.5 years after I was diagnosed, I started my blog, MS Diet for Life. I felt that there wasn't a huge amount of information out there about treating MS naturally, and so I really wanted to share my experience and just tell people about how changing my diet and lifestyle had really helped me to live a much better quality of life with my MS, and had given me back that sense of control that I felt that I lost at diagnosis. I've included a huge amount of information on my blog and laid out my entire diet, the foods that I eat, the foods that I don't eat, and the specific reasons behind why I've given up those certain foods or added certain foods. I'm also a trained nutritional consultant, and so I run a coaching program which helps people learn how to change their diet and lifestyle, which is wonderful for creating a community feel. And we have the best discussions about how to manage our MS. And I really also enjoy my community on Instagram. I post quite a few stories about my lifestyle and the different things that I'm doing throughout the day. And this really gives me an opportunity to connect with others that have MS and hear their stories.
I've never felt better than now that I have MS, because I've been changing my life and I feel so healthy. I do have some fatigue some days. Some symptoms will appear when I don't sleep good and I'm under stress, like some numbness, but it's super minor compared to what I had before.
In a situation where you're feeling so out of control, to be able to do something to take control was hugely empowering. So for me, the biggest benefits were for my mental health and my sense of feeling in control.
I feel super healthy. I sleep way better. I'm more aware of my body. I feel enormously connected to myself and my body.
I started to make a note really in my diary just of how my fatigue levels were every day, and gradually I started to notice that I was feeling fatigued less and less often.
Fatigue was a big one for me. Now I can get through my day without feeling completely drained at the end of it.
After 6 months, I really noticed that this was definitely worth keeping going with. So I thought, well, I'll see how I feel at a year. And at a year, I think I felt kind of 95% back to normal. So it really did have a huge effect. The changes that I've made, the diet and the lifestyle changes.
I have lesions on my brain, and still I managed to have I feel better than ever, physically wise and healthy, mentally too, because I'm really taking the time to be mindful every day and thankful and grateful.
Since my diagnosis, I've run, I think 6 10Ks now altogether. And it's just something I never thought I would do. And I just get so much pleasure out of training with friends and running very slowly around the 10K, waving at everyone and feeling just like, wow, it's just incredible that I can do this, and I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can.
The idea that MS can be treated holistically is beginning to be brought to the forefront of the medical community. And more neurologists are starting to share this really valuable information with their patients.
I do feel that if people feel that they have control, they do much better. And, it is definitely the food and the way they live, but also the fact that they feel they're doing something. It does something to your brain. I feel that.
People like me and people who are involved with the Overcoming MS program, that is the end goal, is that this, the lifestyle changes advocated by charities like Overcoming MS will become prescriptive for people with multiple sclerosis, that there will be referrals to dietitians or nutrition clinics or workshops where people can educate newly diagnosed or people living with MS, can educate them and their family members about the interventions that can be done.
So the work I'm involved with the NHS service is really exciting, because it's really bringing diet and lifestyle and the changes that individuals can make to self-manage their MS. It's really bringing that into the forefront of their care within the mainstream services. So it feels a really, really positive step forwards. So one of the things I do is I'll go along and meet people who are newly diagnosed, share a little bit about my story and the changes I've made and the benefits that I feel I've gained from them. And I guess the hope is really that people leave that meeting feeling like they do have some choices and that there are changes that they can make. And I think what's really powerful about it is that I'm standing there with my medical colleagues, and I think that creates a really powerful message for those patients who've just been diagnosed. So I'm standing with the neurologist who's introducing me, and they're highlighting that there is actually a lot that those people can do as well. And we're very clear in those meetings that, the medical professionals in the team are doing absolutely everything they can to keep up to date with the latest medications or the latest drug treatments. But there is a huge amount that an individual can do to take control and to really promote their own well-being and ultimately manage their MS.
If this could be made standard practice amongst specialist MS consultants, this would be incredible, and it would benefit so many people who are newly diagnosed with MS.
It's always about quality of life. There is no magic wand. There is no ultimate cure that we just can click our fingers and make it happen.
I haven't wanted to do another MRI for 10 years. I really felt that after my last MRI, because my symptoms sped up quite quickly, I felt that the two were related somehow. And I think that made me quite nervous about going for another MRI. And so I have avoided it for the last 10 years, but I do feel like it's important that I re-establish the baseline now that I've had MS for 10 years. To see what's going on, see if, I've got so many lesions in my brain that I need to get medication, or if actually I'm completely fine. I'm thinking I'm going to be completely fine because my symptoms have been really mild over the last 10 years. My neurologist has let me know that a few active lesions were found on my brain during my MRI. And this makes sense because I did experience a few symptoms in November 2020. I'm convinced, however, that these are in response to the terrible stress I felt during the height of the COVID pandemic. Yes, it was very disappointing to find out that I have symptom progression. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that I have been virtually symptom-free for the past 10 years because of my change in diet and lifestyle. It's also a really good reminder of the damage that stress can cause and the importance of finding ways to manage it. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I have the option now to add medication to my treatment regimen. I've never been against it and feel that the right medication is an extra safety net if symptoms are progressing. We all need to find the lifestyle changes that work for us. But if we stick to a few basic health principles, then we'll be well on our way to living a symptom-free life with MS. Keeping our bodies nourished and free from inflammatory foods is exceptionally important. Doing regular, mild exercise is another key. And then actively managing stress through mindfulness and meditation. MS has given me so much more than it has ever taken away from me. And for that, I will always be thankful. It opened a whole new world of healthy possibilities that I never even knew existed. And for those who are newly diagnosed, I know that this is a heavy burden to bear. However, there is so much hope for living a good quality of life, a normal life, a thriving life. There are some great medical treatments available, and treating your MS naturally is also a wonderful option. This is not the end, it's only the beginning.